47% of Americans who moved to Australia in the last 5 years say they'd never go back. But here's what they're not telling you on Instagram. Meet Sarah. 34 years old. Software engineer from Denver. She sold everything: furniture, car, her dead grandma's china set, packed 2 suitcases, and landed in Melbourne with $15,000 in savings and a dream. 3 months later, she was sleeping on a friend's couch, eating ramen for dinner, questioning every single decision she'd ever made. What went so wrong? And why are Australians doing the exact opposite right now, fleeing to America in record numbers? I'm about to reveal 10 brutal truths that immigrants on both sides don't talk about until it's too late. These aren't the pretty stories you see on TikTok. These are the 2 a.m. panic attacks. The bank account's draining faster than you can say g'day. The moment you realize you might have just made the biggest mistake of your life. And number 3? It's the reason most people fail within the first year. Let's start with the one everyone gets wrong. But wait. Before we begin, please subscribe to ensure that you never miss out on any of my essential stuff. Comment "I subscribe" below, and I will personally welcome you to our community. With that said, let's get started. Australian salaries look 30% higher on paper, but here's the math that'll make your stomach drop. Carlos. 29 years old. Registered nurse from Houston, Texas. He was scrolling through Seek.com one night, exhausted after another 12-hour shift, when he saw it, a nursing position in Sydney paying 85,000 Australian dollars. He did the quick conversion, about 56,000 US dollars. Back home? He was making $60,000. But then he saw the Australian cost of living discussions on Reddit. Everyone said, "Salaries are higher here, mate. You'll be fine." So he signed the contract. Gave his notice. Landed at Sydney Airport with his nursing degree and a Texas-sized grin. Then he checked apartment prices. $2,400 a month. For a 1-bedroom apartment. An hour from the city. With a bathroom so small you had to step into the shower to close the door. Back in Houston? He'd been paying $1,100 for twice the space. Groceries? He loaded up his first cart at Woolworths. Just basics: chicken, vegetables, milk, bread, some cereal. The register blinked. $180. For O&E week. His chest tightened. His raise had vanished before his first paycheck even hit. According to the 2023 Mercer Cost of Living Survey, Sydney is 58% more expensive than Houston for an equivalent lifestyle. That's not a little more. That's half your life eaten by rent and avocados. Carlos was earning more. But living worse. Here's what you need to do: don't compare salaries. Compare purchasing power. Before you sign anything, go to Numbio's cost of living calculator. Plug in your current city and your target city. Look at rent. Look at groceries. Look at transportation. Then do the math for what you'll actually have left. Because a 6-figure salary in Sydney can feel like poverty if you're not prepared. But the cost of living? That's just the surface. Wait until you hear about healthcare. Everyone says Australian healthcare is free. But Maria from Chicago learned the $8,000 truth the hard way. Maria. 41 years old. High school teacher. She arrived in Brisbane on a skilled migration visa, thrilled to escape the American healthcare nightmare she'd been reading about for years. No more medical bankruptcy stories. No more GoFundMe pages for insulin. Month 2, she got sick. Really sick. Stabbing pain in her side that wouldn't go away. She walked into a GP clinic, $90 for the visit, but Medicare reimbursed most of it. The doctor said, "You need to see a specialist." Great, Maria said. When? 6 months, the doctor replied casually. Public systems backlogged. 6 months. For pain she was feeling right now. So she went private. The specialist visit, $350. The ultrasound, $480. The minor procedure she needed, $6,200, even with private insurance she'd scrambled to buy. And here's the part that shocked her: free Medicare doesn't cover dental, doesn't cover vision, and in most states, doesn't even cover the ambulance. In Queensland, if you call an ambulance and you're not covered, that ride costs $1,200. One ride. The Australian Institute of Health and Welfare's 2024 report found that 47% of Australians pay for private health insurance anyway, Because public wait times for elective surgery average 107 days. 3.5 months. That's not free healthcare. That's cheap healthcare with a massive time tax. But let's flip it. Jake from Melbourne moved to Orange County, California. He's got employer health insurance, pays $180 a month, $3,000 deductible. He needed to see a specialist for chronic back pain. Got an appointment in 4 days. Paid a $150 copay. Done. Then the prescription came, $340. Back in Australia with the pharmaceutical benefit scheme? It would have been $31. 2 weeks later, he broke his arm surfing. Emergency room. X-rays. Cast. Bill arrived, $2,800 after insurance. So which broken system is less broken? That's the question that keeps immigrants up at night. Here's your move. Research state-specific healthcare costs and private insurance gaps before you move. Not after you're lying in a hospital bed trying to figure out if your credit card has enough room for stitches. Healthcare can bankrupt you in both countries. But here's something that'll shock you even more about American freedom versus Australian safety. In America, you can be fired tomorrow. In Australia, you can't be fired easily, but you might not find a job at all. Derek. 38 years old. Marketing manager from Boston. 10 years at a tech company. He'd hit his ceiling, felt burnt out, and when they offered him a redundancy package, he took it. Took the $45,000 payout and bought a one-way ticket to Brisbane. He had skills. He had experience. LinkedIn said Australia was desperate for marketing professionals. He applied to 150 jobs over 4 months. Radio. Silence. A few automated rejections. One recruiter told him, "You don't have Australian experience." He stared at the email. Australian experience? He was doing the same job. Just in a different time zone. But that's the thing. Australia has this invisible wall called cultural fit. Companies want local experience even for identical roles. They want someone who knows the market, knows the language, not American English, Australian English, knows the unwritten rules. A 2024 study from Indeed Australia found that 63% of skilled migrants take 6 months or longer to find work in their field, despite critical skill shortages. 6 months. Savings draining. Visa clock ticking. Confidence collapsing. Meanwhile, Priya left Sydney for Austin, Texas. She applied to 12 marketing jobs. Got 3 offers in 2 weeks. Picked the best one. Felt like a rock star. 8 months later, her boss called her into a conference room. "We're restructuring. Today's your last day." No severance. No notice period. She had 2 weeks to pack up her desk and her life. At will employment, baby. Freedom works both ways. So what's worse? Being protected but unemployable? Or employed but disposable? That's the gamble. Here's your move. Don't wait until you land to start job hunting. Join LinkedIn groups in your target city 6 months early. Comment. Network. Make yourself visible before you arrive. Cold applications from overseas rarely work. Warm introductions do. But even if you land the job, there's a cultural shock that makes people quit within months. If you've ever felt like work is your entire identity, Australia will feel like landing on a different planet. Tom. 33 years old. Finance analyst from Manhattan. For 10 years, he worked 70-hour weeks. Left the office at 9 p.m. Responded to emails on weekends. It was normal. It was how you got ahead. It was how you survived. He got a transfer to his company's Sydney office. Figured it'd be the same grind, just with better weather. First day. 5 p.m. Everyone started packing up. Not wrapping up. Not just finishing this one thing. Leaving. Tom stayed. Worked till 7 p.m. Sent an email to a colleague at 8 p.m. about a project due next week. Got a reply the next morning, "Mate, it's after hours, this can wait till Monday." At first, Tom felt relieved. Finally, balance. But then the anxiety crept in. Was he not ambitious enough here? Would he stagnate? Was everyone else secretly working from home and he just didn't get the memo? He wasn't lazy. The culture was just different. The 2023 OECD Better Life Index ranked Australia 3rd globally for work-life balance. The USA? 29th. The average Australian works 1,712 hours per year. Americans? 1,791 hours. That's almost 2 full extra weeks. Now flip it. Emma left Melbourne for a startup in New York City. First week, Slack messages at midnight. Weekend emails. Her boss texting at 6 a.m. on Sunday. At first, she hated it. Then something shifted. She felt alive. Driven. Like she mattered. Like she was building something that couldn't wait. 6 months later, she had panic attacks in the shower. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. Burned out so hard she took a month off unpaid just to remember what her face looked like without dark circles. Americans call Australians lazy. Australians call Americans brainwashed. Who's right? Depends on who you ask at 3 a.m. when they can't sleep. Here's the real question you need to ask yourself. Do you work to live, or live to work? Because your answer determines which country will destroy your mental health. If you don't know the answer yet, don't move. Figure it out first. But here's something both countries hide from immigrants until it's too late. 67% of skilled migrants to Australia experience visa anxiety so severe it affects their physical health. And America's not much better. Aisha, 30 years old. Software engineer. Born in Pakistan, moved to the US on an H-1B, worked her way to a green card, then decided to try Australia. After 4 years of applications, waiting, medical checks, police clearances, she finally got her permanent residency. PR. The golden ticket. She was safe. Done. Free. Then one Friday night at 11 p.m., she got an email, visa review notice. Her hands shook. Her chest tightened. She couldn't breathe. She read it 3 times, trying to understand. Something about compliance checks and character assessment review. She hadn't done anything wrong. She paid her taxes. Followed every rule. But apparently she'd missed a single Medicare payment during a bank transition 2 years ago. One payment. $47. And here's the nightmare. The rules had changed retroactively. Something that was fine when she did it was now a red flag. She didn't sleep for 3 days. Hired a lawyer. Cost her $4,800 just to prove she'd done nothing wrong. Australian Department of Home Affairs 2024 data shows visa cancellations increased 34% due to character concerns and compliance checks, often for minor administrative errors. Minor. Like a missed payment. A late form. A misunderstanding. You're never truly secure. But America? Raj found out it's worse. He was on an H-1B in Seattle. Wife. 2 kids. Mortgage. He'd been at his tech company for 6 years. Then the layoffs came. He had 60 days. 60 days to find a new company willing to sponsor his visa, or pack up his entire life and leave the country. His kids were in school. His wife had a job. His daughter had just made the soccer team. 60 days. He applied everywhere. Got sympathy. Got rejections. On day 58, he got an offer. A job he didn't want. For $30,000 less. But it was a visa. So he took it. And resented every single day. Here's your move. Set calendar reminders for every visa condition. Every renewal date. Every payment. Every check-in. Hire an immigration lawyer for annual reviews, not just when you apply. Assume nothing. Trust nothing. The system will not warn you before it destroys you. But even permanent residents face something that makes them want to leave. If you're thinking of moving alone, 92% of expats say this is the hardest part. And it doesn't get easier. Lucas. 27 years old. Graphic designer from Los Angeles. He moved to Perth, the most isolated city in the world. It's closer to Singapore than it is to Sydney. But the job paid well, the beaches were stunning, and he thought, how hard can it be to make friends? He made friends at work. Sort of. They were nice. They'd chat at lunch. But after 5 p.m., they all had lives. Wives. Husbands. Kids. Weekend barbecues with their high school mates. There was no room for Lucas. Friday nights, he'd scroll through Instagram watching his LA friends at bars, at concerts, at beach bonfires. Saturday nights felt like staring at a wall. Sundays were worse. After 18 months, he flew back to LA for a wedding. The moment he landed, the moment he heard the accents, saw the streets, hugged his best friend, He felt more at home in 3 days than he had in 18 months abroad. He never went back to Perth. Quit via email. Lost his visa. Didn't care. The 2024 Internations Expat Insider Survey found that 41% of expats in Australia struggle to make local friends. In the USA, 38% report the same struggle, but for different reasons. Zoe moved from Brisbane to Denver. Americans were so friendly. Oh my god, we should totally hang out. Exchanged numbers. Made plans. Plans that never happened. She joined hiking groups. Coffee meetups. Yoga classes. Made friends fast. But they were shallow. Surface level. No one asked deep questions. No one checked in. When her mom got sick and she flew back to Australia for 2 weeks, not a single person texted her. Not one. She realized, they were acquaintances, not friends. Americans confuse friendliness with friendship. You can be surrounded by people and still feel invisible. That's the immigrant truth no one puts in the brochure. Here's your move. Join hobby groups, volunteer organizations, or expat communities before you arrive. Don't wait until you're drowning in loneliness. Loneliness kills slowly. You won't notice until it's already hollowed you out. But here's what breaks people faster than loneliness. Moving to Australia can set your career back 5 years, even if you're in a skilled profession. Fatima. 36 years old. Architect from Chicago. 12 years of experience. She designed office buildings, residential complexes, community centers. Her portfolio was thick. Her reputation was solid. She moved to Melbourne for love, met her partner online, decided to make it work. Figured her skills would transfer seamlessly. Wrong. Australia didn't recognize her American qualifications. She had to redo certifications. Pass Australian building code exams. Complete a supervised practice period, like she was fresh out of university. It took 2 years. 2 years of jumping through hoops, paying fees, working junior positions just to prove she knew what she'd been doing for over a decade. When she finally got certified, she'd lost $90,000 in potential earnings. $90,000. Gone. And then she discovered the Australian architecture market is a tenth the size of major US cities. Fewer projects. Fewer opportunities. Limited growth. She'd set herself back 5 years for a market that couldn't offer what she'd left behind. The 2023 Australian Skills Commission report found that 58% of skilled migrants work below their qualification level in the first 3 years. More than half. Doctors driving Ubers. Engineers doing data entry. Architects. Well, you get it. But flip it. Liam, a civil engineer from Sydney, moved to San Francisco. No recertification needed. His qualifications transferred perfectly. He got promoted twice in 18 months. His salary doubled. But his visa was tied to his employer. When he tried to negotiate a raise, his boss knew he couldn't just quit. Couldn't interview elsewhere without risking his visa. He was trapped. Making great money. Completely owned. Australia protects you but limits you. America frees you but owns you. Here's your move. Research credential recognition and professional body requirements 12 months before you move. Factor in the time lost, the money lost, the ego hit. If you're in medicine, law, architecture, engineering, accounting, assume nothing transfers. Verify everything. Twice. Because moving up the career ladder in one country might mean sliding down it in another. But if you have kids? This next truth will change everything. This is the truth that destroys 1 in 3 immigrant families within the first year. And nobody talks about it until it's too late. Nina and Marcus. Late 30s. 2 kids, Mia, 7, and Jackson, 9. They were living in Phoenix, Arizona. Tired of the heat. Tired of the gun violence in the news. Tired of the stress. They wanted better for their kids. They'd visited Australia once, fallen in love with Adelaide. Applied for visas. Got approved. Sold the house. Told the kids it was an adventure. First month? Magic. The beaches. The parks. The clean air. Mia and Jackson loved it. Then school started. The kids had American accents. They said math instead of maths. Candy instead of lollies. Recess instead of lunch break. The other kids noticed. Called them Yanks. Mocked the way they talked. Mia stopped eating lunch because she didn't want to sit alone. Jackson stopped talking in class because every time he raised his hand, kids giggled. 3 months in, Mia asked at dinner, "Why did you take us away from our friends?" Nina's heart shattered. Right there. Across the table. Her 7-year-old daughter, who she'd moved across the world to give a better life, was asking why she'd ruined hers. Marcus tried to explain. About safety. About opportunity. About adventure. But Mia just stared at her plate and whispered, "I didn't get to say goodbye." A 2024 University of Melbourne study found that 61% of immigrant children experience social integration difficulties, leading to anxiety and depression spikes in the first 18 months. More than half. These are kids who didn't choose to move. Who had lives ripped away. Who are expected to just adjust. Meanwhile, the Chen family moved from Sydney to Houston. Their kids, ages 10 and 12, thrived academically. Advanced programs. More resources. Better test scores. But then came the active shooter drills. Every month. Lights off. Door locked. Hide in the corner. Silence. Mrs. Chen couldn't sleep. Every morning drop-off felt like a gamble. Every news alert made her chest tighten. She traded one fear for another. Safety for opportunity. But at what cost? That's the question that haunts immigrant parents. What have we done to our children? Here's your move, and this is critical. Visit for 3 months before moving permanently. Let your kids experience school. Let them make friends. Let them feel what the life will actually be like. Then, and here's the part most parents skip, give them a choice. Not the final say, but a voice. Because you're not just moving yourself. You're moving someone who has no control, no context, and no ability to process what they're losing until it's already gone. But here's something even parents without kids don't realize until the bills arrive. Move between these countries at the wrong time, and you could lose 40% of your retirement. Legally. David. 52 years old. Software engineer from Seattle. He'd worked for 30 years. Saved diligently. Had $680,000 in his 401k. The plan was simple. Move to Australia for early retirement. Lower stress. Better weather. Enjoy life. He researched cost of living. Healthcare. Visas. Did everything right. Except the taxes. 3 months after moving, his accountant called. "We have a problem." David would pay US taxes on his 401k withdrawals, because he was a US citizen. And he'd pay Australian taxes on foreign income, because he was an Australian resident. The US-Australia tax treaty has provisions, but they don't eliminate double taxation on retirement accounts. His effective tax rate? 51%. He ran the numbers. Over 20 years of retirement, he'd lose $340,000. Just gone. Evaporated. The price of living in the better country. According to PwC's 2024 Global Mobility Survey, only 32% of cross-border movers consult tax specialists before relocating. That means 68% are walking blind into financial traps they won't understand until it's too late. Olivia, 49, did it in reverse. Moved from the Gold Coast to Florida. No state income tax. Lower federal taxes. She was saving thousands. Then she went back to Australia to visit family. Got sick. Really sick. Needed hospitalization. Medicare doesn't work outside Australia. Travel insurance had a gap. The bill came, $22,000. She paid it. From her retirement savings. 5 years of careful planning, wiped out in 1 week. Save more but pay more. Save less but keep more. Both lose. The system is rigged no matter where you go. Here's your move. Hire cross-border tax and financial advisors at least 2 years before moving. Not 1 year. 2. Restructure your accounts. Time your withdrawals. Understand treaty provisions. Set up the right structures before you trigger taxable events. Don't assume your accountant knows international tax law. Most don't. Find specialists. Pay them. It'll save you hundreds of thousands. But none of this, none of it, compares to the number one reason people regret their move. And it's not what you think. Here's the brutal truth nobody tells you. Moving countries doesn't just change where you live. It erases who you are. Sophie. 31 years old. Journalist from Melbourne. She'd always dreamed of New York. The energy. The opportunities. The life. She got a job offer at a media company in Brooklyn, packed up, and moved. First year? Exciting. Everything was new. She was the Australian girl with the accent. People loved it. She felt special. Second year? Exhausting. The pace never stopped. She was always on. Always performing. The accent became a gimmick she was tired of explaining. Third year? She looked in the mirror and didn't recognize herself. She talked faster. Clipped sentences. Said awesome instead of brilliant. Laughed differently, louder, more performative. Used words she never used. Booty. Salty. Low-key. She felt fake. Like she was wearing someone else's skin. She flew home to Melbourne for Christmas. Her sister picked her up from the airport, and within 5 minutes said, "Whoa, you're so American now." Sophie laughed it off. But it stung. At dinner, her dad asked her to pass the tomato sauce. She said, "You mean ketchup?" Everyone went quiet. She didn't feel American in New York. Everyone saw her as Australian. But she didn't feel Australian in Melbourne anymore. Everyone saw her as American. She belonged nowhere. A 2023 study in the Journal of Cross-Cultural Psychology found that 73% of long-term immigrants experience cultural homelessness, the feeling of not fully belonging anywhere, including the place they came from. 73%. Almost 3 out of 4. Brandon from Dallas has been in Sydney for 5 years. Aussie wife. Aussie job. Permanent residency. He should feel Australian, right? But he still gets homesick hearing a Texas accent in public. Still dreams in American cultural references. Still thinks in Fahrenheit and has to convert. Still says y'all and gets teased for it. "Will I ever actually belong here?" he asked his wife once. She didn't have an answer. Because here's the thing nobody tells you. You're not moving to somewhere. You're moving away from who you were. The person you would have become if you stayed? That person is gone. Dead. You'll never know them. And the person you're becoming in this new place? They're a stranger. A compromise between who you were and who this place demands you to be. You moved for a better life. But you lost the life you had. That's not good or bad. It's not a warning to stay. It's not encouragement to go. It's just permanent. Here's what you need to understand before you buy that ticket. You're not just changing your location. You're changing your identity. Your references. Your humor. Your comfort zones. The way you think. The way you dream. Know what you're giving up. Because you can't get it back. So after hearing all 10 truths, here's the real question. Sarah from the beginning? She went back to Denver after 8 months. She tried. She really tried. But the cost, financial, emotional, identity-wise, was too high. She's happy now. Different than before, but happy. Carlos the nurse? He's still in Sydney. 5 years later. He adjusted. Found his rhythm. But he warns every friend who asks about moving, it's harder than you think. Way harder. So here's what I want to know. If you could press a button right now and wake up in the other country tomorrow, with all these truths on the table, the isolation, the visa stress, the career setbacks, the taxes, the identity crisis, all of it, would you actually press it? Drop Australia or America in the comments right now. No explanations needed. Just your gut answer. Where would you go if you could leave tomorrow? And if you've actually lived in both countries? Drop your story below. Because the people about to make this move, the ones watching this at 2 a.m., unable to sleep, wondering if they should take the leap, they need to hear the truth. Not the Instagram version. Not the filtered highlights. The real, messy, complicated truth. Oh, and stick around. Because next video, I'm revealing the 7 countries where Americans and Australians are actually moving to instead of each other. Places with better visas, lower costs, and fewer identity crises. And why those governments don't want you to know about them. But that's next time. For now, would you press the button?